once you get a Bible, Numbers chapter 33, and we are continuing our study through the book of Numbers and getting really close to the end, just a few more chapters. We will just cover one chapter this morning, and it is Numbers chapter 33. And as you can see, there are two main divisions here in Numbers chapter 33. The first being campsites recorded, verses 1 through 49. 49 of those babies there, which we will actually, I'll read a little bit of it just so you get the idea, but we will not read through all of it. And then we will see at the end, which is where we will spend the majority of our time, the command to conquer at verses 50 and 56. And I am actually going to leave this screen here for right now because I do not have any points or subpoints for those first 49 verses. I'm just going to read a little bit of it, and then I've got a few remarks before we move on to verses 50 through 56. It says in verse 1 that these are the journeys of the children of Israel. Okay, now, if you've been here all along since we started way back in Genesis and Exodus and Leviticus and now Numbers, you might be thinking, man, we already know this is what we've been studying is the journeys. So are we really about to go through that all over again? No. These are the journeys of the children of Israel who went out of the land of Egypt by their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And it says here in verse 2, now Moses wrote down the starting points of their journeys at the command of the Lord, and these are their journeys according to their starting points. And I'll just go through verse 3, and then you'll get a real good idea here. They departed from Ramses, which is another name for Egypt, okay, Ramses, in the first month. On the 15th day of the first month, on the day after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with boldness in the sight of all the Egyptians. Gives us a little bit of history there. Look at verse 5, because I lied. I'm not only reading to verse 3. Then the children of Israel moved from Ramses and camped at Succoth. And then it just continues from there. And what you find here is 49 verses of camp names, which we're not going to read through all of those. It's just a record. It's a history for posterity's sake, for history's sake, for the children of Israel to see and to remember, oh yeah, we camped here and here and here and here. And what's funny is as you and I have been going through the story of them leaving Egypt, there are lots of places and camps, and maybe these are considered cities, some of them in here. You'll go through and you'll go, we never read about that. We never read about that. We never read about that. So why is it in this list if they didn't stay there? Oh, but they did stay at all of these places. But what the Bible does often is it doesn't give us every single detail along the journey. Okay? They've been traveling for 40 years. We don't have 40 years of history. We've got specific times, moments in time, situations in time along that journey. What they're doing here, what Moses is doing, is recording every single place that they stayed at. But we didn't get all of those cities. Perhaps my best guess is because there wasn't something that really happened in every single one of those little camps or every single one of those little cities or areas. They got there, they camped, probably for a short time, and then packed up and moved on. And they got to the next place, and they camped for a short time, and then packed up and moved on. And there wasn't anything really happening in those small places. We get those stories about, certain areas, being in Sinai or being in the wilderness of Zin or Sin, and, what happened there and what God did. And so we get all these little snapshots from this 40-year journey. Now, that would mean that these 49 verses are worthless to us, right? Wrong, absolutely wrong. Because I'll make a few remarks before we move on. Like I said, there is something very interesting about these verses. As you go through and you read, they went from this place to this place, and this place to this place, and this place to this place. It's funny that in this list, what we see is we get another glimpse, and this is what we've been getting all along. We get a glimpse of God's heart, a glimpse of what God does or how He operates, how he operates, how He does things. And you go, what, really? From a list of campsites? What are you talking about? Yes, because what we are reminded of here with all of these, little, kind of no-name towns, although they have names, it's kind of like one of those no-name towns that you pass through. What we see through this is that God has been with his people every single step of the way. In the miraculous and the marvelous, and in the mundane. And what it does is it reminds you and I of who God is. That at every single step of our lives, every inch, whether we're, every waking moment, but also every sleeping moment, God has constantly got his eye on us, is constantly aware of us, and his presence is constantly with us. And that is good news. For some of us, we might go, oh man, that's kind of like bad news because I haven't been doing things that, I've been doing things that I shouldn't be doing. But the cool thing is this, that God knows. He knows what you've been doing. And if you've been doing things that you shouldn't be doing, he knows about it, and he's been there with you, and he hasn't destroyed you yet. He hasn't looked at you and go, oh man, you shouldn't be, doing that or watching that music video or whatever, and that's it, you're out of here, or I'm going to kill you, or, you've lost your salvation, you're no longer mine. No, he's been with you at every single one of those moments, and yet, as the book of Romans tells us, he still loves us. Incredible. I mean, you think about your family or maybe even your friends. If they knew everything that you did, if they knew every single one of your thoughts, every single one of your feelings toward them, would they still love you? They probably still love me. Maybe not unconditionally, but they might still love me. Or they might love me tomorrow. They might love me today, or they might love me tomorrow, depending on my thoughts or my actions or my feelings toward them or toward other things. And yet God knows every single one of those thoughts and feelings. He sees what we do out in public. He sees what we do behind doors, and still is crazy about us. That kind of love you don't find that kind of love. Even in February for Valentine's, you can't find that through a Hallmark card, right? You can't find that through the most expensive of gifts. You are only going to find that kind of love from God. And it's wonderful news. Matthew 28:20 says this, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. That was the last thing that Jesus said, or that was recorded for us in Matthew. Okay? That was the last thing that he said in the book of Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew. Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. He is just always with us, always going to be with us. And notice the promise, even to the end of the age. That means at the end of the age, he's going to dump you, right? No. That means that he's just always going to be with you. He's going to make sure that you make it to heaven. He's going to make sure that he ushers you into heaven. His salvation is for eternity, not for the days that you're really good, but then the days when you're really bad, you lose it. It's not how that works. He's there with you. He's going to get you from start to finish. Remember Philippians 1:6? Being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will do what? Anybody know? Anybody? Faithful. He will be faithful to complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. What wonderful news. What wonderful news. There are some people who think that you can lose your salvation. I am not one of those people. If you can lose your salvation, how is it that you lose your salvation? Is it by sinning? How many sins do you have to sin before you lose your salvation? Or which sin is it that causes you? Is it well, I can sin a bunch of little sins, but then if I do a really big one, because God, we suppose sometimes in our minds, cannot forgive us for the big ones. Well, he only forgives the little ones, but he cannot forgive the big ones. Is that what we're getting out of Numbers? No. What we are getting is a story of God's people who, every time they turn around, God's been blessing them and providing for them. Every time they get a chance, they turn on God. These people are fickle people, and they sin, and they have. We know that they worshipped a golden calf some time ago. We know that they've been disobedient. We know that just a short time ago, when we were reading about Balaam and Balak, we found out that the people committed sexual sin with some of the other peoples from around them. So which sin is it that causes us to lose our salvation? Good news. There isn't one. Now, what does that mean? That, that's pretty cool. That means I can just go out and sin small, big. I could just go wild. Well, you could, and God would still love you, but what does that mean about your salvation? It might mean that you are being disobedient, but you're still saved. Or it might mean that you were never even saved if you go headfirst into sin and you love it and there's no turning and there's no conviction. But as far as God's love for you, and as far as his salvation, when he saves you, he says, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Or in Philippians 1:6, he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. What he started, the work that he started, he is going to finish. That's great news. That's wonderful news. And that's what we get out of these verses, verses 1 to 49. A wonderful reminder of God's unfailing, unconditional, unending love. Isn't that wonderful? Now, every single little heart candy and card that you get this year for Valentine's Day is going to be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But when you compare it to God's love, it's like, oh, this is okay. Get some jewelry, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. But it's going to tarnish, right? God's love doesn't stop. Right? Okay, let's move on to our second main division, which is the command to conquer. Now, it's funny because these two sections in this chapter are not directly related. It's not like, okay, now that we have this list of cities, let's do something with it. That was that time we got that list. But now it says in verse 50, now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho. So they have not crossed over yet into the promised land. And this is what God said. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan. Now we'll stop there for just a moment because this is great news. This is hope. Look at this in verse 51. Notice what God said. Now he's speaking to Moses first. Speak to the children of Israel, and here's what I want you to say to them. And the first word, when you have crossed. Not if. Okay, Israelites, if you can hold it together, and if you can just be good or good enough, then I'm going to let you cross over into the promised land. He doesn't say that. When. God is fully expecting to lead this group across the Jordan River into the promised land. No doubt about it in God's mind. And that goes along with what we just read in Matthew and in Philippians 1:6, where God is going to, when he starts something, he's going to finish it. He's not like Pastor Chris with DIY projects all over the place. I've got rain gutters at my house in the front that I was desperately trying to put up yesterday. And I've never put rain gutters up, but I'm just one of those people. It's like, how hard can it be? Right? And, last night in the dark, I was still trying to finish and couldn't quite get finished. When God starts something, he finishes it. And so he says, when you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, verse 52, then you shall drive out. There it is. This command to conquer begins with this command to drive out. Then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you. What does it mean to drive out? That they are to drive out. It means that they are to go into the promised land and push all of the inhabitants out. They're to destroy them. This is a tough thing. We talked about this just a short time ago, This is something difficult for people to mull over in their minds or to accept. That God would command his people to push out and destroy another people. And we have a hard time with that because, well, isn't your God a God of love? And doesn't he accept all people? And, doesn't, for God so loved the world? And so, if God so loved the world, then why would he tell his people to destroy the Canaanites, the people that were in the land? Huh? What's the answer there? The answer is this, that yes, God is loving, and he is also just. He's loving, and he's fair. He's loving, he's merciful, he's just. He is all of those things. But how can you be loving and just? Because a lot of us, and it's important that we understand this, that a lot of people have this mindset that if you love me, then you have to accept everything that I do or I am or I say. But that is absolutely not right. I can love someone. When my kids were little, I loved them, and they wanted to play in the middle of the street. But I said, no, you cannot do that. And sometimes they would whine, or they might cry or get angry at Dad. But because I love them, I say, no, you cannot do that. Because I love them, I do not unconditionally accept everything that they do. I unconditionally love them, but I do not unconditionally accept everything that they do. If it's harmful for them, or if it's going to be harmful to other people, then I need to put a stop to it. That is motivated by love. See how that works? God is the same way. I mean, if I'm that way, how much better is God at that? And because God loved his people, but it wasn't just love for his people. It was love for the world. It was love for the community. It was love for everybody around there. You see, the Canaanites were a wicked people. You do not have to take my word for it. It is very easy to jump online and do a quick study of the Canaanites to see what it was that they did to people. How they would attack other nations and take slaves. How they would lead people out of their own countries and away from their own homes and tear families apart. It does not you do not have to dive very deeply into a study of the Canaanites to see how wicked they were. So wicked, and I'll mention it again in a few minutes, so wicked that they would oftentimes sacrifice their firstborn male to appease their own gods. Again, sometimes we get this idea like the children of Israel, they're going into the land of Canaan. And they're going in there to attack Ma and Pa Ingalls. And Ma and Pa Ingalls never did anything to hurt anyone. Why would they do that? Or we get this idea that, they're going in to attack the Cleavers, Beaver Cleaver and his brother Wally and, his mom and dad. Or, why would they do this? The Canaanites, they're like the Brady Bunch, man. They're so loving. And why would God do this? No, we've got the wrong idea, the wrong picture in our mind. Again, it doesn't take long to do a quick study, to find out that the Canaanites were a wicked people. And so because of love, being motivated by love, God is sending in his people and commanding them to destroy and to clear out. They need to drive out. But there's another thing that they will need to do here, and this will make total sense to you. Verse 52, they needed to destroy certain things. Look at this. Destroy all their engraved stones. Destroy all their molded images, and demolish all their high places. Now, again, what is this? They were to drive everybody out. And once they got rid of the Canaanites, then they were to go through and destroy certain items. In fact, they were to destroy all of their items. But here, we're given some specifics. Destroy all their engraved stones. Engraved stones. What is that? Destroy all their molded images. Anybody know what a molded image would have been? It's the I word. Anybody know what that is? Somebody said,
Idol.
It is an idol. Yes. Yeah, they're idol. That makes sense to us. Destroy all their idols. Those would have been their gods, their little false gods, those statues of all sizes, really. I said little, but there were some that were very large. And then demolish all their high places. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But what about this first one? Destroy all their engraved stones. Engraved stones. What is that? That sounds like some kind of wonderful, beautiful, some kind of stone monument or something. Probably, like engraved stone. I mean, that's probably like some beautiful monument where they would, maybe they would remember all of their loved ones or something. Like, what exactly is that? Well, what it was an ancient form of pictures. That's what it was. And why would God want them to destroy all the engraved stones or destroy all of the pictures? Well, what kind of pictures were these? Were they just lovely pictures of the countryside? What were they? These items that are described here, the engraved stones, the molded images, the high places, are all religious images, idolatrous images. All of these items were part of their worship. And even back then, though there was no Instagram, there was no interweb where they could just, get on there and a couple clicks later see all sorts, hundreds of thousands and millions of lewd images, pornographic images, they made their own on stones. They would chisel out pornographic pictures on stone. And you go, man, this class just got really awkward. That's why sexual sin is such a problem today, because we keep like, oh, let's not talk about it, let's not say anything, and we're not going into a sex ed class right now. And but that's the idea, is that these were engraved stones of sexual images. The molded images that they had, even many of their gods. Again, I actually do not suggest this, but to look to see Canaanite gods, pictures or even images or little statues of them. Oftentimes they were made with enlarged body parts. That's as far as I'll go there. The Canaanites were very wicked, very sexually minded. Though it was ancient, it was still pornographic. And what about their high places? Demolish all their high places. What is that? High places is where they would go. They would go up into the high places. The word high indicates that they would go up into the hills and into the mountains. And that's where they would worship. And they would go up there and they would set up altars there to their gods. They would do them on mountains. They would do it in groves, trees, worshiping nature and different things. But they would go up into these high places, and as you would be walking through the town or through the city, you would see people's personal altars set up, and that's where they would go and they would worship. But along with these high places or places of worship to other gods, and that was enough for God to say, you know what, you gotta break all these down. Don't leave them standing, because these are to false gods. But their worship oftentimes included sex. And they would, sacrifices were offered to the gods for two purposes. The first was to appease the gods' wrath. It was an act of propitiation. I'm trying to settle the heart of my God, because my God is fickle, and sometimes he gets angry or she gets angry, and so I'm offering this sacrifice to kind of calm them down. The second purpose, was to strengthen the God, to enable him or her to bless those who worshiped him. Prized gifts resulted in greater blessing from the God, particularly when firstborn male children were sacrificed. Cult objects such as lilies, which represented sex appeal, and Serpents, which were a symbol of fertility, were associated with the sensuous worship of many of the gods, and prostitution with extremely perverted acts was a central part of the religious life. In contrast to Egyptian goddesses who were always clothed, Canaanite figurines were often naked and, again, exaggerated body parts. And the strange thing is we'll talk about this in a little bit, what God tells them is, notice what he says here in verse 52. Destroy all their graven stones, right? He doesn't say some. He doesn't say most. He says destroy all their molded images. He doesn't say some. He doesn't say most. And demolish all their high places. He doesn't say some. He doesn't say most. He says all. Incredibly, there are still Canaanite, all of these engraved stones and these molded images and the items that went along with the high places, incredibly, those items are still being found to this day in the land of Canaan, on digs. Well, wait a minute. Didn't God tell them to destroy all that stuff? There shouldn't have been one piece left, and yet there have been thousands that they have found. Why is that? We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But here's the next thing. You got to drive them out. You've got to destroy those objects, and then you have to dwell. Now, keep in mind that this story, if you take a step back for just a moment and you go, okay, the book of Numbers, what is this all about? It is the story of faith. What faith looks like, how it operates. The children of Israel are following God. They're following Moses as they follow God by faith. The things that they do are by faith. And this becomes a picture, a reminder for us, this, to drive out when you and I get saved. It's time to let go of things, right, from the past. This is the main reason why people do not want to get saved. Because, wait, I have to give things up? I have to change? I have to do something different. I have to stop living how I'm living. No, I don't want that. But there is the driving out. But there is oftentimes the destroying of things that before infected our minds and kept us locked in. When I first got saved, I was 20 years old and I had lots of music. Back then, we had something called vinyls. Okay? They were created way back in the 1900s. Okay? Speaking of the Ingalls family, way back in the 1900s, and I was alive back then, and I had lots of vinyls, and I had something called cassette tapes. Okay, these were little plastic things about this size, the size of a phone, and they had little reels in there, and you would, record music on them, and then you'd play those in your car or in your Walkman, okay, with your headphones on, and then occasionally the tape would get all tangled up and you would have to, get a pen or a pencil, stick that in the reel and kind of roll it back up. Some of you are very familiar with these things because, it's like, oh, I buy those at Urban Outfitters or whatever. And, you thought they were brand new. Like, nobody's got these. Look at this, But there's a reason why we have all of our music on our phones now. I never have to reel that thing in, okay? But I have quite a collection of I've always liked lots of different music. Growing up with my family, we had everything from, Led Zeppelin to Kenny Rogers to Grover Washington, and just everything in between. There was like jazz, there was rock, there was country, there was soul, there was R&B, there was, just everything. And so I grew up with that, and I had that, same type of music taste, old stuff, new stuff, rock and rap, and, all kinds of music. I had quite a collection. And as I got saved and began to walk with the Lord, God began to impress on my heart this music that I still had pumping into my mind. You see, it's not about what goes in. Remember what Jesus said? It's not about what goes into the body. It's about what comes out. But there is a problem with what goes in if it's going in and then it's infecting your mind and it's coming out. Nastiness, okay? So we have to keep that in mind. And what was going in wasn't jiving with this new life that I had, this new nature. My old nature's still there, and it's being fed by this music. I was trying to be a Christian, but still listening to NWA. And the things that they were saying and the language that they were using and the themes that they were talking about wasn't matching up with this new life in Christ. Or trying to, again, I had a vast, a wide-ranging, musical taste, and so, listening to rap or listening to some punk or something, it's like the messages were not. This is not jiving here. This is not working. And so I decided finally one day it's time to bag all this stuff up and get rid of it. At first I thought I can sell it. I can go to the record store up the street and I can sell some of this stuff. And then all of a sudden hit me, no. If I do that, then all I'm doing is I'm taking the poison and I say, hey, I don't want this poison anymore. Sell it to someone else. And so I decided, no, I cannot do that. Bagged it all up, took it all out, threw it in the trash. Done. For like 2 days. And then I went back out because trash hadn't come yet, and I thought, what am I doing? There's so much money invested, so much music, I can't do this. And I took the bags out. And then I set them in the carport. Because I thought, how can I just throw away all this money? And there they sat. And sat. They didn't come back into my room. I wasn't listening to it anymore. But strangely, they still had a hold on me. Why is it that I'm not listening to it anymore? But I can't seem to let it go. I was like Gollum. It's like, my precious is out in the carport. And why? How come? No, sure, you can have it. Well, wait a minute, hold on. And I was doing this tug of war. And finally, trash day's coming. Trash day's coming. Today's trash day. I ran out, grabbed the bags, threw them in the trash, jumped in my car, took off for school. When I got back, the bags were gone. Done. Free. Now I just have all that music on my phone. No, I'm just kidding. Some of the music, there was some jazz and different stuff. That's not necessarily bad. And some of it I've been able to listen to again, but I haven't listened to NWA. I haven't listened to the majority of it. There came this point in my life where it was time to destroy it all. And then what did I do? I went down to a place called Berean Christian Store. Some of the elderly people in here might remember Berean. It used to be up in a place called Colton or Grand Terrace there. And I went in there as this brand new Christian. It's like, okay, I ain't got no music, man. Like, what do you got? And I was, you went into the Christian store and I was sorely disappointed. It's like, really? I just threw away all of this wonderful music and I got to replace it with this, But as myself and my sisters, we, kept digging, we started finding better and better music, and it's like, this, okay. But here's the point that I'm getting at. I went from destroying all of that stuff to dwelling. Look what he says in verse 53. You shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land. You've got to get them out of there. But also you have to do this, and dwell in it. For I have given you the land to possess. Once that stuff is gone, I have got to fill it up. I've got to fill it up with something good. You see, if I do not use up that space, guess what happens? We'll see it again. He'll finish with a warning here. But what will happen is all of that bad stuff will come back. We'll get to that in just a moment. But here's a story or a teaching that Jesus gave from Luke chapter 11, verses 24 through 26, where he taught us a principle. He says, when an unclean spirit, he's talking about a demon, when a demon goes out of a man, he goes through dry places. That means empty places, this demon, seeking rest. In other words, the demon goes out. The demon gets cast out of an individual. And then that demon goes searching for somebody else to possess. Seeking rest and finding none. You say, that must be who's living in my kitchen cabinets. because every time I go in there, the kitchen cabinets are open. No, that's probably just your little sibling doesn't know how to clean up behind themselves. But these demons, they go out seeking rest and finding none. And this is what the demon says: I will return to my house from which I came. In other words, I'll go back to the individual that I was cast out of. And when he comes, he finds it swept and put in order. The house that he was living in, the person that he was possessing, the demon was cast out, and the person's life has been swept, and everything's been put back in order. But it says in verse 26, then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there, and the last state of that man is worse than the first. Anybody remember the story of the Gadarene demoniac? Gadarene demoniac? Jesus pulls up in his boat to the shore, and he starts to get out, and this man comes running at him. Chains, broken chains around his wrists, and I think his ankles also. He was absolutely, completely naked. And he was out of his mind. And he was possessed with demons. And when Jesus said, what is your name? The demon spoke and said, we are legion, for there are many. In other words, there was a legion of angels inside of this, or legion of demons inside of this one man. And Jesus cast out those demons. Remember, they went to the herd of what? Pigs. They went to a herd of pigs. The pigs went crazy. They ran, and, when pigs fly, and they flew off a cliff into the ocean and died. I suspect, it's just my guess, it's just my simple little opinion, that this man, the Gadarene demoniac, at some point in the past, that maybe he had a demon and had it cast out and cleaned up his life, but didn't surrender his life to the Lord. And so these demons came back in full force. But the idea here is this. In verse 53, you shall possess the inhabitants of the land. Dispossess the inhabitants of the land. And then dwell in it. You got to fill that. Don't just empty it and then leave it. You got to throw that stuff away in the trash can and then go down to Berean and say, okay, I need some new music to fill up that space in my life. Now, we don't have to go to Berean anymore. I don't even know if there is a Berean anymore. But you've got your phone, and there are so many wonderful options for you to be able to listen to some good Christian music if that's your thing. If it's movies that you need to cast out and get rid of, it is too bad that you can't just throw away your phone, although some of us may need to do that, right? If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Do something drastic. Maybe it's time to go, you know what? I don't need this phone anymore. Grandpa, where'd you get your phone? Where'd you get that flip phone? Where'd you get that Cricket from? Maybe it's time to just get a phone that, all it does is call. That's all I can do. That's all you need. But you got to fill up that space. See, if the Israelites go in and they clear everybody out, but then they leave the place empty, what's going to happen? The Canaanites are going to go, oh, they're not even in there. Let's go back. They're going to come back even harder. So they had to dwell. In verse 54, we find out that they also needed to divide. And you shall divide the land by lot as an inheritance among your families. To the larger you shall give a larger inheritance, and to the smaller you shall give a smaller inheritance. There everyone's inheritance shall be whatever falls to him by lot. So they're going to cast lots, kind of like rolling dice, sort of like that. But basically, and then at the end of verse 54, you shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. So whatever it was, your whatever piece of land you get, that's what you get, and then it's up to you to develop that. It's up to you to develop that. What are you going to do with what you have? With the resources that you've been given, what are you going to do? Remember the 3 servants whose master was leaving, and he left them each an amount of money and said, here's some money, I'll be back. And when he got back, the first one had increased the money. The second one had increased the money. The third one did what with it? Buried it. And gave it back to him and said, look, I've got your money. And the master says, you wicked servant, wicked and lazy servant, why would you not invest it? Why would you not do something with it? That's the idea here, is that we get what we get. We've got the resources. God saved us. We've got salvation. Now what? It's, there's only so much that we can do with our looks, unless you've got enough money for plastic surgery, I suppose.
And enough guts.
And enough guts, yeah. There's only so much that you can do with your athletic ability. You can push and train and learn how to go faster, move faster, stronger. You can do those things, but there's always somebody better looking. There's always somebody stronger, faster. We have what we have. It's up to us to develop that, to say, okay, God, this is what I've been given. And Lord, multiply it and use it. I want to invest it. Some of us are sitting on those resources. That's no good. You're wasting time. I know you feel like, man, you feel like you're, hey, I've hit the ripe old age of 15 and, I've got plenty of time left. No, you do not. I was telling Joe Perry earlier, I said, dude, he was making fun of his dad. He's like, oh, you're old, telling him he's old. I told him, dude, you're going to go down, you're going to go take a nap, and when you wake up, you're going to be 38. And you're going to go, what in the world happened? It's in the blink of an eye. You think you have lots of time. You think you have lots of time. But that's the one area that every single one of us is going to be so greatly surprised by. How did the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years just pass by? What in the world happened? It's going to go so quick. And some of us are sitting on resources that you have, abilities that you have. It is time to get up, wake up, stand up. It's time to get busy with those things. Surrender them to the Lord. Ask God to use them. Let's finish this thing up, verse 55, where he tells them to drive them. Oh, I'm sorry. That shouldn't be, well, you can leave it danger if you're a note taker. You can leave danger. I forgot to change it on there because what I changed it to was drive out completely with the emphasis on complete. But there is danger in there. Look at verse 55. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, if you do not do what I'm telling you to do, then it shall be that those whom you let remain shall be irritants in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall harass you in the land where you dwell. Those Instagram searches for things that we ought not be searching for, still in our search history. I don't go there. I don't go look at them. But I've still got them in my search history. Why is that? Maybe they're like Pastor Chris's music. I don't know. I know I shouldn't be doing it, and I know it's time to get rid of it, but and I'm not going there and looking at those things, but I can't seem to let them go. They've got a hook in us, and we can't seem to loosen our grip on it. What's the problem? You see, what God was saying to the people here is, listen, if you do not drive out all of get rid of everything, if you don't get rid of it, it's going to come back, as they say, to bite you in the hind parts. It's going to come back to get you. That's what God is saying here. It's time to empty it out. Get rid of it. And some of you need to do that this morning. Not right now, but after you leave this class, you need to go through your phone and say, you know what? Done. And you might have to go through, maybe your thing is you got to go through and you got to block some people. Like, I need to block this woman, or I need to block this dude. I just need them out of my life. That's it. God, just come on, just help me clear it all out. Drive them out completely, because if you do not, they will come back to bite you. Verse 56, moreover, it shall be that I will do to you as I thought to do to them. Goodness. God ends there with this warning that if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, you are going to wish that you had. Because not only will those things, not only if you don't drive them out, they're going to come back to plague you, but also he says, I am going to judge you. Now let me ask you a question. Some of you know the answer to this because you're Bible students and you've been around the Bible for a long time. Let me ask you something. God is telling them, get rid of all of the inhabitants. Did they do that? No, they did not. Did they get rid of all of the idols, these sexually explicit idols? No, we're still finding them today. And you and I will find out as we continue our journey through the Bible that in fact they did not do this. And in fact the Assyrians came and the Babylonians came and attacked these people. God judging them through the Assyrians and through the Babylonians and others He used them to discipline his own people, to take them as slaves out of their own country, the country that he had given them. God's judgment on them, because they would not listen. Listen, God loves us passionately, unconditionally. And because of that love for us, he will not give up on you. He will continue to work. He is relentless, as a matter of fact. That love is relentless. And driven by love, he will continue working in you, seeking to change you, seeking to loosen your grip on the things that are holding you back. And it is best if I loosen my grip and say, okay, God, here it is, just take it all, rather than, okay, God, I'm going to fight you on this. You cannot fight God. Jacob tried to fight God. Didn't work well. He left with a gangster limp and a cane. Matthew Henry, a Bible teacher from a long time ago, believe it or not, he's even older than me, said, if we do not drive sin out, sin will drive us out. If we be, he was an old guy, if we be not the death of our lusts will be the death of our souls. Some of us have got to get to work, got to get busy and say, you know what, that's it. I don't want this stuff in my life anymore. We got to cut it, got to cut the cord. And you might have to tell somebody, hey, listen, I need you to hold me accountable, man. I need you to take my phone, and here's this app. Just take my phone, and I want you to put a password in that I do not know. That way this app will keep me from searching or looking at things on my phone that I ought not be looking at. Here, just go for it. And you don't tell me the password. Just go. I'll surrender it. I'm gonna get drastic right now. God said that if my right hand is causing me to sin, I need to cut it off. So if my right eye is causing me to sin, I need to pluck it out. So I'm getting drastic. Here you go. You go for it. Some of us might need to tell somebody, might need to tell a parent, hey, listen, Mom, Dad, I need your help. I need you to cut the subscription for HBO. We do not need HBO. Staying up too late, watching things I ought not be watching. Mom, Dad, this is how serious it is. I need help. Some of us might need to go to a friend or a family member and say, look, you and I, we cannot hang out anymore because I have a hard time saying no to you, and the things that you're leading me into are damaging to me. And I'm trying to be right with the Lord. I'm trying to live for the Lord 100%, and I need you to get these things. Some of us need to drive things out of our lives completely because they're holding us back. Like trying to get in a boat and go across the lake and your anchor is dragging. It's just not going to work. It's not efficient. It's not helpful. It's dangerous. Time to get rid of it. Father, thank you so much for your word.